and he's bringing it here. So let's start off. Doogie, you can find Doogie every week on the Scoop podcast, Apple, Spotify, and ScoreNorth.com. He's also part of the 5 Eyewitness News sports team here in the Twin Cities, and he brings inside information about our favorite local sports teams. Let's just start with the other big thing from Tuesday this week. The NFL trade deadline passed, and the Vikings made no further moves after the trade of Unique Ngakoue to the Ravens. So, Doogie, how close, from what you're hearing, did they get to making a trade? And I think my other question is, Riley Reiff is almost certainly going to be a guy that they cut before next season because you can save like $12 million in cap space. So they might wind up cutting Riley Reiff and getting nothing in return for him. Why not try and get a 4th-round pick or something for Riley Reiff? So what are you hearing?
Well, Phil, I mean, I'm not quite sure anybody was willing to give a 4th-round pick for Riley Reiff. I'm not quite sure anybody was willing to give a 7th-round pick for Riley Reiff. Baltimore loses Ronnie Stanley. He's out for the year. Baltimore made logical sense. The issue was and is that Baltimore doesn't have the cap space to absorb the Reiff contract. Tennessee made logical sense going back multiple weeks, but the replacement there at left tackle has played well. So I'm told Tennessee had some dialogue with the Vikings, but nothing came even remotely close. Dallas is out of it. So, yeah, Dallas has a need at left tackle, but I don't sense that Dallas ever came remotely close to making a trade for Riley Reiff. So, yeah, I don't think they came close at all on Reiff. I was wrong on that. I thought he would go. He told some teammates late last week he thought he would go, but I also told you guys last Thursday in this conversation that somebody from management told Reiff that he likely wasn't going. So even though he thought he was going, he got some indication that he wasn't going. So ultimately he doesn't go. I know that Tajay Sharp's camp tried to get him to New England. I mean, he's an afterthought. He can't even dress on game day. So, they tried to peddle him to New England, but New England made a trade for a different receiver, Anthony Harris. Washington had interest, but too much money. So to answer your question, Phil, they didn't come close to making any sort of trade entering Tuesday's deadline.
So, Dukes, was this more of a they tried and actually were proactive and were trying to move guys but couldn't then? Because if that's the case, that's fine. The thing that I didn't want was, you beat the Packers and then you see that there is the potential because of COVID to have or there could be an 8th playoff team added in each conference. And then the Vikings say, well, hold on a second here. But if it was door 1, which is we called teams and tried and couldn't make trades, that's fine. If it's door 2, then I think that's dumb.
Well, it was door 1 on certain guys, Judd. I mean, they were never moving Adam Thielen. I don't know where that chatter came from. They were never moving Harrison Smith. So I don't know where that chatter came from. But yeah, were they proactive on Reiff? Were they proactive to an extent on Anthony Harris? On some other guys, Sharp? I think
Kyle Rudolph, maybe?
Yes, I don't think they came close on Kyle. I don't have an indication that they came close to moving Kyle. I mean, Kyle's name's been out there for years, and they still keep holding on to him. I don't have a sense that they came close on Kyle. But yes, were they proactive? I can tell you, Judd, that somebody high up in an NFC front office, this team actually made a trade for a defensive lineman. They had some interest in Ngakoue going back a couple weeks. The indication then was, in this team's dialogue with the Vikings, that the Vikings were very open-minded on many fronts. But it wasn't Thielen, it wasn't Smith. It was more so Reiff and Anthony Harris. And Anthony Harris is still due approximately $6.5 million the rest of this season. It's not like a lot of teams are saying, bring on $6.5 million of salary. So, were the Vikings willing to eat some money? Did it make sense to move Anthony Harris to Washington and swap a 7th-round pick for a 6th-round pick, but then needing to eat maybe $2 million? I mean, it was too hard to match things up. So I'm telling you, I thought they would. Remember, a couple weeks ago, I set the over-under at 1.5 trades. I told you last week that at 1.5 I would take the over, but it ends up the under ends up winning with just the Ngakoue trade.
All right. So one of the things that we sort of nitpick about our friends in the Twin Cities media is there's not a lot of people that like to speculate, and there's not a lot of people that like to throw theories out and ideas out. And one of the many reasons we love Doogie is that he likes to play along, that he likes to throw some things out, to dive into some reckless speculation every once in a while. So I would love for Judd. So we spent the entire Purple Daily episode yesterday. We did like a 30-minute deep dive into the specifics of how the Vikings could trade Kirk Cousins to the San Francisco 49ers. And coincidentally, Mike Rand kind of did the same thing in the Star Tribune yesterday. So it's funny, we posted our episode the same time he posted his article, and so it's definitely a conversation. Judd, if you could give just a quick summation of your 4-step plan to Doogie to send Kirk Cousins to the San Francisco 49ers, and then we can get Doogie's thoughts on this.
Okay.
All right, you
All
guys
right, let me
down
grab
for
a
this?
pen. I'm going to write all this down.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So, Dukes, the most important thing here, and the flawed thing that Mike Rand did was Mike went back in time and said, what if the Vikings had traded Kirk to the Niners at the deadline? That doesn't work. Cap-wise, that's a nightmare, okay? Like, you're not going to do that because you will cripple yourself as the Vikings completely. But let me just tell you that if the Vikings and San Francisco reunite, I mean, do Kirk a solid by reuniting him with maybe his best friend in the entire world, Kyle Shanahan, that if they then date the trade after June 1st of 2021, Darren, it's a $10 million hit in dead cash. That's a problem, but it's doable. But they save 21 mil. So if you do this trade post June 1st, it's doable. San Francisco has the room. San Fran is done with guaranteed cash to Garoppolo, so that's done. So they can take on Kirk. And the most important thing that I was told is if Kirk and his best friend in the entire world are reunited, San Francisco can go to Kirk and say, you and your friend Kyle can work together for a long time as long as you restructure your contract. And therefore, what looks to be a huge, terrible cap hit in 2022 can come down. Long story short, this is the one team, because people say, call Dallas, just call it. Well, Dallas ain't taking him. This is the one situation where it's not pie in the sky and it actually works. And Kirk Cousins to San Francisco could be a move that, and I mean this sincerely, helps every party involved, Kirk included, and the Vikings especially.
Well, I don't think it's all that reckless when John Lynch is on the record. I forget what podcast. It was an ESPN podcast, right? After last season.
It was Golic and Wingo. Golic and Wingo, I believe. Yeah.
Golic and Wingo. So it wasn't even a podcast. It was the ESPN morning show at the time, the radio morning show. He went on the record laying out how Kyle Shanahan wanted to acquire Kirk Cousins. We know about their history in Washington. It makes logical sense. This is not reckless speculation. Now, does it do the Vikings a solid yet? I mean, what's the path then to the Vikings replacing Kirk? I think the schedule sets up brilliantly. If you guys want to write this down, I don't think it's nuts to think that the Vikings are 6-6 or 7-5 heading into the Tampa game. If you want some purple positivity, right? I mean, it sets up brilliantly. So where are you selecting in the first round to get your hands on the North Dakota State quarterback, the Ohio State quarterback? You're not getting Trevor Lawrence. The BYU quarterback all of a sudden looks like a pretty solid prospect, but you might be picking so far down, and you don't have the second-round pick to give up to move up after the Ngakoue trade. Are you giving up multiple future firsts to move up? So I don't know, Judd, if it does the Vikings.
Dukes, can I stop you for 1 second?
Yes.
With Mike Zimmer as your head coach, I have decided you are better off just having a cheaper QB. His desire is to run and possess the football. And so unless you're going to change that, if Zim gets his way, Kirk will average somewhere probably between 15 and 20 passes per game the rest of the season that you are talking about. So unless you're going to go get a coach who's going to coach a quarterback up and actually value that player, what we have learned is this. In Mike's world, quarterbacks are one thing, necessary evils, okay? So my answer to your question is, I don't care who the quarterback is, as long as he doesn't actively sabotage his team and as long as his cap hit can be handled easily.
Well,
that's my answer.
But who is that guy? I mean, is it Jameis Winston? Is it Cam Newton? Is it Jimmy Garoppolo? Not quite sure. I mean, some of those guys are gunslingers, right? So I don't know if some of those guys, if any of those guys make any sense. So who is the quarterback? I'd be curious on that front. But do I think it makes logical sense for the 49ers and Vikings to have dialogue about a Cousins trade to the Bay Area? Yeah, 100%. I think we all know at this point Jimmy Garoppolo is not the long-term answer for the 49ers. He keeps missing games. How many games has he missed? When he plays, heck, he could have won them that Super Bowl, right? But he wasn't capable of doing that when they had a chance to put that game away. He was very much a game manager in the playoffs. Think back to the victory over the Vikings. I mean, how many times at this point Garoppolo is not the long-term answer there? So it makes sense. I just wonder what the path is for the Vikings replacing Kirk then.
I do find it kind of funny, like the narrative surrounding, and even going back to the John Lynch interview on Golic and Wingo, or I think it was Golic and Wingo, and this, hey, you know, the connection that those guys had in Washington, you know, Kirk Cousins and Kyle Shanahan, just like what they had going in Washington. Because when I think of great quarterback and coach connections, when I think of two guys who really are iconic with a franchise, it probably starts with Bill Walsh and Joe Montana, and then maybe Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. And right in that mix, it's Kyle Shanahan and Kirk Cousins from Washington. 8-8, baby. Yeah.
Hey, let me give you another scenario. So what if Atlanta is picking high enough where it makes sense for Atlanta? So let's say they hire Eric Bieniemy. Then don't you say to Eric, okay, who do you want? If they're in a position to draft, say, Justin Fields, does Atlanta, I don't know what Matt Ryan's contractual situation is, but can Atlanta make a transaction with Matt Ryan? Would Matt Ryan appeal to Kyle Shanahan in San Francisco?
I would say this is me speaking on behalf of Kyle Shanahan, but if you have your choice between Matt Ryan or Kirk Cousins, I think you probably choose Matt Ryan in that situation. Matt Ryan's a little older, but he just has a lot more credibility leading teams deep into the playoffs. So
I think that in Kyle's mind, though, that he can take Kirk and maximize him. And he's probably wrong, but who cares? He's probably wrong, but I think that Kyle, being a coach who prides himself on being great, and he's damn good, I think he looks at Kirk and says, that was my pupil. That was my guy.
The other thing to consider here, because, you know, we sit here and I'm sure Washington fans are maybe listening to some of this, you know, when Kirk's name pops up and thinking, okay, like he is who he is. Like he doesn't raise the level of, he fits in perfectly with whatever your structure is in terms of his level of play. He's not going to elevate it. Once in a while, he will shipwreck it, as we've seen this season. But if you're San Francisco and you're in a spot similar to where the Vikings have been at a couple times in the last 15 years, I think people are wondering, why are you guys even, like, why would San Francisco even consider this?
Because their Super Bowl window is open. It's
correct.
Still open
Quarterback beer goggles. That's where they're at. And if they feel like they don't have an option and Jimmy Garoppolo is a non-starter anymore for them, they could easily look over and Kyle Shanahan could say, all right, there's some flaws with Kirk, but if I could squeeze the most out of Kirk, then we can make this thing work. And I'm not saying that that's what will happen. I'm saying that that's what they might be thinking.
I think what will happen, though, is that San Francisco is going to explore upgrading on Jimmy after the season. Is that Matt Ryan? Is that Kirk Cousins? Is that someone else? But I think that is going to happen. So can we deduct logically, because of the Kyle Shanahan, Kirk Cousins connection, that it makes sense for the Niners and the Vikings to engage in dialogue? 100%. So keep the chatter going.
Nice.
Amen, brother.
Doogie, all right, let's actually start off this Twins free agency portion of the scoop here with a tweet I just saw from Declan Goff retweeting our friend Bob Nightingale from USA Today. All right. He says Cleveland strapped for money. Well, everyone's strapped for money, but Cleveland always strapped for money, intends to trade all-star shortstop Francisco Lindor by opening day. Several rival teams have been informed. Lindor earned $17.5 million last year and is projected to earn about $21 million in salary arbitration in his final year before free agency. So he has one more year left of team control, and then someone's going to have to pay him about $30 million a year. But the word rival teams is interesting there, because I would think that the Twins are one of the foremost rivals of Cleveland.
Yeah. Phil, there's a better chance I win Powerball this weekend than the Twins trading for Francisco Lindor. I can see I can see the Dodgers making a move. Corey Seager's got some position flexibility. Why re-sign Justin Turner? Shift Seager to third base. Now, Seager's up here in a year for some big money. But if you're the LA Dodgers, why not go chase Francisco Lindor? You certainly have the pieces to make such a transaction. So, you know, just off the top of my head, I'd keep an eye on the LA Dodgers. I would not keep an eye on the Twins. But yes, what Bob said about the Indians likely trading Lindor, it's what we've heard now for about 2 years. And considering the climate a lot of these franchises are facing right now, yes, it makes a ton of sense that Cleveland is going to trade Francisco before the start of next year.
I've got your splash team. Your Francisco Lindor leader to me easily now. New York Mets. New owner trying to make a splash. Incredibly rich, even in the midst of a pandemic. And if you take him and put him in that market, it would be huge. I bet you that they make a big pitch, and it makes perfect sense. And best case, too, he's out of your league, which is fine because he's great to watch play, but he is a pain to play against because he's so good.
Yeah,
I bet he goes to the Mets.
You could sell me in the Mets. What about the Yankees? Now, I would think they'd want to re-sign DJ LeMahieu. Who wouldn't want to re-sign him? But you could do some maneuvering if you wanted Lindor to play shortstop for the Yankees. But yeah, everything you lay out about the Mets, I'm with you on that. Steve Cohen is going to spend money for sure.
Well, so free agency is ready to rock here in baseball. They're not going to have the customary winter meetings where everyone just goes and gets drunk and makes trades with each other in early December. They're just going to go on Zoom calls. But what do you have any idea what the Twins' plan might be? Starting with internal guys who are free agents. I mean, Nelson Cruz is the obvious one. Jake Odorizzi. What is the appetite for them to look to upgrade their roster? What's the payroll going to look like? What do you know about the Twins going into the offseason?
I can go myriad directions. On Odorizzi, I can tell you absolutely wants to be back. On Nelson Cruz, there's continuous dialogue. Thad Levine is the point person in the Twins front office handling the Nelson Cruz negotiation. So, yeah, do the Twins want to bring back Nelson? Yes. Are they to the point of exchanging numbers or anything like that? Absolutely not. If you're the Nelson Cruz camp, you're still awaiting word whether the National League adopts the DH next year, right? If they do, then maybe the Braves become a possibility.
That could take months, though, Duke.
A different National League team. It could, or the Reds. So, sure. Yeah. I mean, if the Twins made a 2-year offer right now for Nelson at pretty good money, do I think he'd take it? Yes, but we're not to that point. The Twins are still awaiting some direction from Major League Baseball, right? And we still don't know, like in the heart of the summer, let's say, Memorial Day weekend, the Twins are hosting the Yankees. Can they have 35,000 people at Target Field? I mean, that sounds unlikely, but maybe. So, like, if you knew some of those things, you think about the Twins' TV contract expiring. Is it in a year, Judd? It's not now, but it's like in a year, maybe 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
What are those negotiations going to look like with Fox Sports North? So I mean, there's all sorts of things the Twins still need to figure out, but I think we know this much. What was their opening day payroll last year if they had played a full season? About 140 million? Was it 140?
Yeah, like 138 or something. Yeah, something like that.
All right, well, we know it's not going to be that in 2021. I don't know what the magic number will end up landing on, but I can tell you it's not going to be $138 million for 2021.
So the important thing here to me, though, is this. Payrolls across the sport are going to crash. Like, it's unfortunate, but it's going to take place. So here's what I think we're not discussing enough, though, is because of that, my advice to players right now, take what you can get. Unless you're Bauer, unless you are an upper echelon, I'm great and there's 5 teams that love me. Odo, Nelson Cruz, I would come back and say, 1-year deal, please and thank you. And I would shut up and I would sign it. And it sounds bad, but guys, free agency started on Sunday. No one's talking. And I mean, I know it's always a slow roll, okay? But we are in a pandemic in which we have very, very rich people, billionaires, who are panicked. They are panicked. Their sports aren't doing well. Their businesses, which got them rich, are not doing well. If I'm a player, guys, for 2021, I take what I can get. I shut my mouth, and I hope that we come out in 2022 and things are back, or 23. That's it.
It sounds good. I can tell you that there are conversations. Like, I can tell you,
very upset. Your dog is not getting a good contract.
Scooby, come here, tree buddy. Scooby, come here, buddy.
No contract, dude. Sign the 1-year deal.
Come here.
Qualifying offer, Scooby.
Say hi to the boys. Hop up.
Yeah, let's see him. Come on, Scoobs.
Come here,
Scooby. Who's a good boy? Who's a good boy?
Great dog name.
Oh,
Scooby and Doogie.
Scooby
and Doogie pod.
Scoobs.
Nelson Cruz?
He's a good boy.
Look at Scooby. Oh, yeah, Scooby's great.
Look at him.
Hi,
Look
Scoobs.
at that big smile.
Oh, yeah. He's a monster. Anyway, I can tell you there
Got
are
some scoops.
conversations. The Twins have reached out to the agency that represents Charlie Morton, that represents Corey Kluber. So the Twins are planting seeds on guys in addition to their own guys like Trevor May and Tyler Clippard. I mean, the Twins are talking to agents. So talk is happening, Judd. We're not even remotely close, though, to the point of numbers being exchanged, right? Where actual contractual offers are being extended. So I hear you. Take what you can get. I remember last winter or late fall, Atlanta was uber aggressive early. Atlanta was really aggressive, signing some guys, including Will Smith, really, really early. So, yeah, if a guy gets an offer that maybe seems underwhelming, but for the landscape that we're in, like if Jake Odorizzi today got a 1-year offer for $8 million, if I'm Jake Odorizzi, I'd probably jump on that. That might sound asinine, but, yeah, I would probably do that. But I don't know. And we just said we think that Cohen with the Mets is going to spend. Some other teams will spend. But I just don't know. I haven't heard of teams actually extending legitimate offers at this point. It's still early, but at this point. So we still need to let this thing play out a little bit, Joe. But I can tell you, actual talk is happening.
Man, what an interesting. It kind of feels like the Twins are in a little bit of a transition mode, and that they're going to have to say goodbye to some familiar faces and welcome the Brent Rookers for full-time roles and Alex Kirilloff for a full-time role. But those guys might not be fully ready over the course of a season. So we'll see. Hey, do you have a couple minutes for one more piece of speculation here?
I do. Can I also pass along an email I just got? I think everybody got this. This is an announcement. Joe Rossi, Gophers defensive coordinator, has tested positive for COVID-19. He will not coach Saturday in Champaign.
I thought he got fired. Good. I'm glad he still has a job.
He's actually a good coach. Those guys can't tackle. Maybe it's
that runs counterclock to what you say.
He certainly hasn't tested positive for good third down defense. So
1,000 plus yards in 2 games will make you sick.
Can Scooby play a linebacker on Saturday, dude?
Yeah, well, trust me, he's more capable of tackling than some of those guys. I mean, those linebackers and safeties need all sorts of work. But I will say this much: these guys can recruit. They have a bunch of really good defensive recruits coming in the 2021 class. I would not jump ship, right, on the Gophers. I don't know if they get to 4 or 5 wins. I thought they'd win on Friday. How they blew a 38-21 lead is still beyond me. They're going to give up a ton of points all year. It's something we talked about a month ago. But I think the offense is good enough. We'll end up winning some games. But I'm telling you, this staff recruits at such a high level. Just give it some time. I get it. The bar is high after what they did last year. But they'll be fine next year when hopefully some semblance of normalcy with a full spring practice, with winter workouts, summer workouts into a full training camp. I think they'll be okay next year.
Yeah. All right. This gentleman, this is a write-up, just a summary from Yahoo Sports. All right. Reckless speculation for you. Devin Booker said in 2018, quote, this is 2 years ago. Devin Booker said, "This is probably my last year ever not making the playoffs." Well, the Suns missed the playoffs in 2019. Despite going 8-0 in the bubble restart, they missed the playoffs again in 2020, and they have yet to finish above 500 with Devin Booker. Ryan Russillo, who has a lot of connections, and so does Bill Simmons in the NBA. Ryan Russillo on the Bill Simmons podcast, quote, "The worst kept secret in the league is Booker already wants out of Phoenix. He's in the, I think, second year of a 5-year contract. 2 of his best friends in the world are Karl-Anthony Towns and D'Angelo Russell. We have brought this up before on the show. The 8-0 start to the bubble probably makes it tough for them to trade him this offseason. But Doogie, what are your thoughts on this nugget from Ryan Russillo?
The Wolves will continue to monitor Devin's situation in Phoenix. I can promise you that Gerson Rosas is going to continually check on Devin's availability. Do I think that Phoenix moves Devin before the start of next season, which looks like it'll start on December 22nd? I don't. I see Devin Booker starting next season on the Phoenix Suns, but if they get off to a slow start, could we potentially revisit the situation in February or March? Maybe so, but I don't have the sense that Devin is quite to that point. Russillo is great. I know he's got all sorts of contacts, but then you talk to some people in Phoenix that have great contacts. There's an afternoon radio host that I've hopped on his show before, John, I forget his last name.
Gambo.
Yeah, Gambo. And I know Gambo's got unbelievable sources in the ownership group of the Phoenix Suns. Gambo is now on record saying that Russillo is full of you-know-what. And I'm inclined to believe Gambo more so on this than Russillo. So I don't think it's as dire as Russillo is laying out. But yeah, I mean, much like teams, hey, Phil, guess what? This isn't breaking news. Teams across the league continue to monitor Cat's situation here. The Wolves are not to the point of trading Cat. Cat has not gone to management requesting a trade, but it's hard not to wonder when you have a really good player, a superstar, in a small market on a team that hasn't won, that if that player eventually looks to find, a happier situation. So, yes, our team's monitoring Devin's situation, including the Wolves, 100%. Our team's monitoring Cat's situation here, 100%.
So as the draft approaches, Dukes, NBA stars who are actively right now being shopped against who you think actually does potentially get moved before we start in December?
I think Victor Oladipo gets moved in Indiana. I can see Drew Holiday getting moved, although I'll read you what one team, not the Wolves, told me about Drew's availability in New Orleans. I know that Shams with The Athletic had that report yesterday. Let me read you this text from
actually Dex. Do you have a soundbite? Is that what you're?
No, I was just saying I have something to add to the steam of Timberwolves speculation,
Beautiful.
But I want Doogie to finish.
Cool.
They want too much for us to give up. We do like him. And then I'll keep.
So that's not the Wolves. That's another team.
That's
Dukes?
another team. Yeah,
okay.
But it's to the point of teams are putting out feelers. You're going to see. I mean, can I see, because Holiday's only got 1 year left on his deal, can I see him eventually getting traded? Sure, but I think it's more New Orleans putting out feelers, seeing if some team is willing to pay a huge price, and if so, then you make the deal. But I don't get the sense that New Orleans is aggressively looking to move Drew Holiday in the next 72 hours or anything like that.
Doogie, I saw a name in Zach Lowe's report today that we haven't heard much of, and he said Jarrett Culver's name has entered the rumor mill, and he reports that my best read is the Wolves would deal Culver now only in a blockbuster trade for a star or a high draft pick. He also asks, does the Wolves get involved in a sign-and-trade for Danilo Gallinari? What do you know anything about that?
Well, I mean, remember how creative they got back in February involving the Nuggets, the Rockets. It was multiple transactions. It wasn't just a 14 trade. It was actually 2 different trades. So, yes, can I see the Wolves doing all sorts of things like that, including, getting involved for a free agent, whether it's Gallinari or someone else in a sign-and-trade scenario? Yes, 100%, Declan. Do I have specific Gallinari scheme right this second? Not necessarily, but is he a good fit with this roster? 100%. So does he make sense? He does. Do I think the Wolves would move Culver? Yes, especially if it's Culver and something else to get them a legitimate third star. They're not married to Jarrett Culver. They know all the warts that Jarrett Culver has. Heck, they just redid his shot. So they don't even know what the heck his jump shot is supposed to be. We don't know if Jarrett Culver's ever going to be a capable shooter. The work ethic is there. I wouldn't give up on Culver. But at this point, as the 6th overall pick, there's not a whole lot there. So, yeah, would the Wolves move on from Culver if it brings back the right player? Yes, undoubtedly. It's not like they're married to that guy, even though the contract is still a rookie contract. And the hope is he improves a lot in year 2 compared to year 1. And again, I'm telling you, I would not write the final chapter on Jarrett Culver. But make no mistake, the Wolves would absolutely move Jarrett Culver.
Yeah. Dukes, give us some rapid fire scoops to wrap the segment here. Go ahead.
So the Wolves, it's been reported, were out west last week. We know that they saw LaMelo Ball in person, that they saw Anthony Edwards in person. Here's a name that they saw in person that isn't out there that I'll give you right now. Tyrese Halliburton, the Iowa State combo guard, can play on the ball, off the ball. I'm told they connected with him out west last week. I'm told that they're trying to get in with Obi Toppin. Maybe they already did, the kid from Dayton. But I know that there's interest in connecting with him in person. They're allowed up to 10 draft visits. I don't know if the Wolves are going to use all 10, but they certainly want to use at least a few more. They'd love to go visit James Wiseman, the big man from Memphis. But at this point, there's no inclination from the Wiseman camp to allow James to meet with the Wolves, to connect with the Wolves, because Wiseman, while he could coexist with Karl-Anthony Towns, I don't think it's the most ridiculous thing ever. He prefers to be somewhere else where he's the feature 5-man, right? Like if he comes here, he's maybe the 4-man guarding 4s out on the perimeter, depending on how you want to use Karl-Anthony Towns. He'd be the 3rd, who knows, maybe even 4th option, right? He doesn't want to be that here. So The Wolves, I know, want to connect with him. Maybe it still happens, but at this point, the Wolves have not connected with James Wiseman.
Nice. That's Darren Doogie Wolfson. You can find his Scoop podcast every single week on scorenorth.com, Apple, Spotify, 5 Eyewitness News. That was a great Scoop session.
Bye, Scooby.
Light a cigarette.
Bye, Scoops.
See you, Scoobs.
See you, boys.
And bye, Doogs.
Yeah, bye, Judd. See ya.
All right. Amazing.
Oh, Scooby's great.
Scooby and
Doogie.
Scoobs and Doogs.
Scoops and Doogs.
Doing it up. So, all right. Let's take a moment to collect ourselves here. Let's react to a couple things that Doogie just brought up. And also, we've been kicking this idea around for a little while. And I think this is the week now that we've got Twins entering the offseason. We've got the NBA draft coming up. The NFL trade deadline was just a couple of weeks ago. It's time to expand our reckless speculation umbrella. We are a show of the people. We are here as conduits to the fun scenarios that could and oftentimes in this state do happen. I mean, this is a collection of teams that has gone out and flown a plane down for Brett Favre. Mm-hmm. They've signed Josh Donaldson, Kirk Cousins. I mean, a lot of things happen in this state, and we like to speculate on those things. And so we're also going to, on today's episode of Mackey and Judd, debut Who Says No under the reckless speculation umbrella.
Taking it to another step.
Yes, we are.
Because you know what? We're not afraid to tackle the tough discussions.
So we'll be